Okay, well, welcome. Sorry about I know the times that I've gotten caught on that time zone thing every once in a while, particularly when it's other parts of the world. So where at the East Coast are you?
Oh, I'm in Windsor, Detroit border.
Oh,
So
okay. Okay. Windsor
yeah,
is it Windsor? Is that not Windsor, Michigan, or is that Canada? I don't know.
Canada.
Canada.
It's
Okay.
Canada, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, how are things up in Canada today?
Not bad, not bad. It's pretty sunny out, so it's been raining though quite a lot lately. I'm not sure how it is everywhere else, but it's just crazy.
Okay. Well, do me a favor if you don't mind. Just give us a little intro. I know you're in the music industry, and I know you've got an interesting story. So go ahead and just kind of give us a little background if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the last, I'd say 25 years, I've been touring all across North America in some heavy metal bands. And, as that kind of goes, it's also the habits that form on the road. A lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of staying up late, not really sleeping much. And, bad food habits, bad food choices too. And that basically started creeping up on me. I was, previous to that, I was into high school wrestling and was doing jujitsu in college and stuff. So, uh, the idea of thinking that I had to, try to outrun my diet and like be athletic and be as athletic as possible was always a very real thing for me. And I would lose 40, 50 pounds a summer for running 3 times a day while I was eating, eating whatever I wanted. And as long as I ran, weight started to fall off. But as everyone knows, I'm sure it just creeps back up, and it's always the same 50 pounds that you're dealing with. And then it wasn't until recently, like a low carb, keto, and into carnivore world, where everything started to happen for me. I was about 320 pounds, 319 pounds. And yeah, I'm 205 now, 204. So well over 100 pounds lost. And it was just, regardless of the poundage, it was more of, getting that psychological boost, being able to start thinking clearly and making the right decisions for myself, and not always having to cave in to things. And, realizing that, a lot of this is, it's springed behind relationship stuff. It has a lot to do with, how ritualistic you hold your meals and food, and what how you emotionally deal with things. So I've definitely been able to leave that, and I kind of have gotten into, I jump in head first, with everything I do. So this was no different.
Well, first of all, congratulations on 100 pounds. That's a pretty awesome task. There's not a lot of people that do that or successfully. So hopefully it'll continue to stay off. I mean, I just wanted to. There's a question from Niles here asking about. He's a big metal fan. Any band names that you'd want to relate
Oh,
to?
cool. Depending on what genre of metal. So I was like more into the doom stuff. So I played in I sang for a band called the Mighty Nimbus, which was based out of Minnesota, and we toured with Entombed, and those guys are like my all-time favorites, and they signed us to their label. And then in an acquisition deal, we got to move over to Candlelight Records from Philadelphia because of them. And Crowbar was another one that we played with. We toured with 7 weeks on the road with those guys. And our guitar player from Nimbus is the drummer for a band like a doom metal legendary band called Pentagram. So he plays with them too now. And so I do my own thing in Canada now. And I'm in a band called Gypsy Chief Goliath here, and another band called Age of Wolves. I like to keep busy as possible. It's how the idle hands, they kind of stay busy and focused.
How well? I mean, I'm just thinking when you were kind of big, singing. I remember, what was it? I can't remember the lead singer from Meatloaf, but it just kind of reminds me of that. But how has your ability to perform musically as a musician changed as you've changed your diet? Has there been any difference in that?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things is that being a performer, or priding yourself on being a performer, the insecurities of the way you look or the way you feel, all that stuff takes a big hit when you're on stage and not feeling like $1 million. But the one thing that I can honestly say is that during the performance, and it's not just remembering the notes and remembering the lyrics and trying to put it all together in like a theatrical performance per se, a lot of it is, you know, pandering might not be the right word, but like talking to the crowd and making sure that what you're talking about is logical and clear, you know, and it's not just rambling rants of like a madman or something, you know. Everything is so much more clearer for me, and it's all in a specific compartmentalization, you know, like I'm able to really you know, clear out my thoughts and make sure that like after this song, this is what we're going to be talking about. After that, this is what I'm going to be talking about, and this is the energy too, of course. But I think logically, it was a lot of it was the mental game, you know, being able to deal with people that way. But yeah, of course, remembering everything, because that was also a problem, you know, that was a big problem. And dealing with the performance now, we just started getting back into it. I don't know, I think we were like the last of the Mohicans here to like get back out of lockdown and stuff. And I mean, it's just been, you know, toll after toll. So we just started actually playing again live.
Yeah, and I, you know, again, obviously when you're younger, it's a different sort of situation. But I mean, you mentioned that, like, you know, as we all, none of us are shocked to find out there's a lot of partying and alcohol and drugs and staying up late when it comes to touring in a band. How do you sort of do that now and try to stay healthy? I mean, it's got to be, you know, obviously there's temptation and there's, you know, maybe a schedule that doesn't align with healthy, you know. Most of us would say, hey, get a good night's sleep, go to bed early, and, you know, eat a healthy diet. How do you, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess in years past, you know, if you're playing in a venue, it'd be smoky, and, you know, I imagine that's changed a little bit. But how
Sure.
do you stay healthy on the road now that you're doing this stuff?
Well, I think when we were able to still tour, part of it was the pre-planning. A lot of it was had to do with fasting. You know, that was a big thing for me too. I was always trying to play on a fasted state because I felt better that way. I felt lighter. I felt more energetic and felt more confident. But in terms of like, you know, it's not much. There's not much to deal with like the smoke and all that stuff because they don't smoke anymore in bars. But in you know, basically like with the way we deal with stuff, it's personally for me, it has a lot to do with fasting. And, you know, we'll eat, but I'll probably fast for most of the time. And, you know, if I can, we try to find a grocery store of some kind, you know, where I can actually get to like a meat station or something. But as far as, you know, diet on the road and all that stuff, it fasting has been like the cheapest and easiest way for me to deal with it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I often find myself if I'm traveling. I mean, you know, particularly like a long day of traveling, plane flight. If I can't get something, I just don't eat. You know, a lot of times I'll just kind of go without eating, and I don't have a problem with that. I usually I can easily go 24 hours and skip a day if I need to. I rarely need to though. I've really found a traveling situation in Western society where I couldn't get at least a burger patty somewhere. And I know there's a question about, have you ever run into a situation where there was no meat available at all and you had to do something alternatively?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of every time we're at a restaurant, it's like I don't know how I can justify, you know, eating spending 30 or 40 bucks on something that just has a million sides, and then the piece of meat is like the smallest little rinkety dink thing. You know, it doesn't even make a dent in me. So I just rather opt out, or, you know, I'll just suck it up and pay for it. But it sucks.
Yeah, I would say probably at this point, less than 2% of my diet is food I get outside of home. I mean, it's just because of the same situation. If I'm going to eat 2 pounds of meat out at a restaurant, I'm going to be paying a ridiculous amount of money, and usually I'd rather not. I mean, occasionally I'll do it, but not very often. So, yeah, I think it's something with fasting. So in a band, so you're not by yourself. What's the band members think? What are they thinking about what's going on with you? I think you're crazy or what?
Yeah. I think conventional wisdom has kept them a little, I don't know, a little shocked with my decisions, a little extreme. I don't want to, dig on them too much, but like, it's always that, the high cholesterol thing, it's this, it's that, you should keep your, calories low. Like it's just everything we all know to be, upside down thinking right now. It's hard to, I find that oftentimes I'm explaining myself for hours in the van while we're driving. Like this is probably more often than not, this is the conversation we usually always have, before shows and whatnot. And then every once in a while, like I'll partake in the ritualistic drinking, and whatever at the show, but I'll go with, a vodka or something like that and keep it simple.
Yeah. And so, what about, so you said high cholesterol. I mean, is that something I mean, have you looked at those things? I mean, are any concerns from your health physicians and stuff like that?
When I first started, I got my blood markers done, and my LDL was a bit high, but after further examination, like my triglycerides were down, HDL seemed to be in a pretty relatively normal state. So, and I know that LDL, from everything I've read, is a variable number. So it could have been, in 3 days from now or 3 days from then, my cholesterol could have drastically been different. So no, I'm not too concerned with any of that stuff. Palpitations, they always seem to, avoid me. I maybe that has to do with the amount of salt I put in my diet still now. So I don't know. There's been no signs of concern or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just interesting about the, the cholesterol variability. This is one thing that, I mean, whether you think it is problematic or not, it's certainly variable, and checking it on one day may give you a very different treatment than checking on another day. And it's something I ran into just in myself. I've got a home cholesterol checking device that I can do. And I did that for the first time, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I had my total cholesterol drawn as part of a lab workup. And it was like I'll say it was 237 total. And then I checked it again at home, and it was 160. Now the question is it accurate at home or not? I suspect it was, but it's variable. It changes. And, Dave Feldman has shown that pretty conclusively, that you can lower or change your cholesterol pretty dramatically over the course of a relatively short period of time, within a matter of several days. And so, yeah, I think making decisions based on a single blood draw is kind of silly in my view. But
fasting also raises it, does it not?
There are studies that suggest that fasting over a period of time, I think I've seen a study where, fasting for a week caused cholesterol to go up, I think anywhere between 30 and 70%. So, I mean, then the question would be, well, does that mean that not eating is bad for me because it raised my cholesterol? And same thing we see with uric acid. Fasting will cause uric acid to go up. So, and then some people will say, yeah, it's bad. It must be bad because these biomarkers are associated with disease. And I would argue that, it's probably these biomarkers are dependent variables, and it depends what's going on, that whether they're problematic or not. But that's a little bit more nuanced, and some people prefer just black and white answers, which I don't think we can give people, unfortunately. So tell us a little bit more about what's going on. So family is okay? All right. Is there family involved that is concerned about you dropping dead of a heart attack, or are they happy to see you lost 100 pounds? The thing that amazes me is, you can literally lose 100 pounds and people will tell you, well, we're concerned about your health now because you're eating.
That's exactly what happened. Not with my immediate family, but, like parents and things like that, mom being a nurse, having that, that background, when I was heavy, nobody seemed to care. I know that they secretly cared probably, but it wasn't until I started to drop rapidly was when they were like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm so worried about your heart health. I'm so worried about this. I'm so worried about your kidneys, your liver, all this craziness. When the more you look into things and the more, I'm the type of person that I'm not just the kind of guy that like needs to be told what to eat and then follow that and you'll see results. I need to know psychologically what the science is behind it and why does it work, you know, and need to understand it before I even jump in, because on those first moments of weakness and you start going on autopilot to the fridge, you need to be able to remedy that. You've got to be able to kind of, you know, go through those waters. So, you know, seeing them, you know, kind of be the way they were with me, once they started realizing that like it wasn't just, you know, what I ate, and it was also what it was doing to my brain and how things were clearing up everywhere, making these choices in my life that were starting to affect my lifestyle and my journey. You know, I realized, oh, okay, people that I love are saying these things because they themselves are not happy with the way, you know, their lives are turning. They almost want to, you know, commiserate with you. And then eventually they started to ask me questions. They started to fall ahead and, you know, and realize that there might be something to this. And then once I started giving them kind of, you know, different links and stuff to read, some journals and things like, you know, they were very much starting to be convinced that, you know, this may be a bigger issue than what we all thought it was. You know, the standard North American diet, these processed companies, these food companies, the marketing, all of that, you know, the science behind the funding, you know, of these papers and whatnot. So it was just interesting, and they were all supportive after that, and started helping them kind of tailor their life with better decisions as well. And now everybody's like, I would say everybody is if they're not 100% on board, they're pretty good on board. Can you guys still hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, we can hear. Yeah,
okay.
I can hear.
All right. I think I went. I feel like I went. My picture broke up. But yeah, everybody's been quite supportive at this point. We're raising, you know, like a low carb kids, and you know, we're doing as much as we can to help. You know, help our kids as well understand, you know, that the better food choices are you know, scrap the bread, scrap the potatoes, you know, opt out for more protein, and, you know, just be smaller decisions for them. But my wife is full on. She's on board with me.
Yeah, I think your point about you know, the food industry. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's even a secret. I mean, I don't think anyone is surprised to know that the food industry cares about profit and doesn't really concern themselves about your health. And even knowing that this food is awful for us, I mean, it just tastes too good. You know, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And people can't resist it, and they know it. It's like you know, it's like telling, you know, it's literally like having a bunch of heroin addicts and giving them free, cheap, easy access to heroin, and telling and making it legal, and you know, we're telling your grandmother to reward you with it. I mean, this is a tough problem. It really is, and you know, it takes for some people, it takes being scared to death, literally, you know, or you know, some horrible health issue to resolve that, and that's their advantage. I mean, it's, you know, you've got people addicted to this stuff, and it's really, 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 really hard to get them off. I mean, it's like I literally have amputated people's legs that were addicted to junk food, and they still, despite that, would not stop eating this stuff, you know. And they were, I mean, I can remember, I mean, I had a lady who was a double amputee, below knee amputee, diabetic, and she needed shoulder surgery, and it was just like, you know, everything was falling apart. She would not stop, you know, stop doing those things. It was just, you feel sorry for them, but it's like, what else can you do?
Can I ask you something about that?
Of course, yeah.
Like, what do you think is the fundamental reason behind that? Like, is it literally just because people can't get off it, or do you think they would just rather the easy road or the hot, like the magic pill kind of thing? Or is it, you know, is there something, you know, obviously broken?
Yeah, I mean,
Our own
I think
paths.
there's some, you know, obviously there's an addictive component. I mean, you know, it tastes good. I mean, we're hard. I mean, the food scientists know what makes humans tick and know how to hit the stimulate these pleasure centers and know how to drive addiction. I mean, you know, it's like if you're trying to create something intentionally addictive, science can do that. But then there's some degree of learned helplessness. I mean, these people, you know, they've kind of, you know, someday they're laying there and feel how miserable, and they're going to try, and then they try, and then they fail. And then they try again, and they fail again, and they do that over and over again. And after enough failures, they just resign themselves that I'm never going to beat this, and therefore I'm just going to resign myself to whatever, and I'm just going to, what the hell, I'm just going to eat the ice cream and cookies, and at least I get a little bit of pleasure in that. And so we've got that, and I see this whenever I point that out. I said, look, we need to change the dynamic and change things, and you know, focus on these things. And there's people saying, well, I've tried and it didn't work, and therefore that's it, you know. And there's a lot of people in that situation, unfortunately. But and we don't do anything. And so instead of encouraging people to continue to try, we just kind of normalize it now and say, well, it's fine, healthy at any size, body positivity, you're beautiful no matter what you look like, and those things are all fine. But at the same end of the road, we're creating a sicker and sicker population, and it's going to require more resources, and it's going to, you know, it's just a huge problem that's being ignored, or, and I would say almost intentionally ignored for whatever reason. I think the powers that be, the people that, you know, make all the money off this don't really care. I mean, they're like, you know, it's, you know, at the end of the day, people are pretty greedy and selfish, and it's all about themselves. And, you know, it's, you know, I think there's some people that kind of talk about stuff and virtue signal a little bit, but to actually get things done is kind of a rare thing, unfortunately.
It's as if we all fell into a trap, and, you know, it's been inherently passed down from generation to generation. You mentioned something earlier too about the, you know, the grandparents and things like that. Like I have vivid memories of growing up where, being a huskier kid, you know, going to my one side of my parents is like to one side of my grandparents on my dad's side or something. And, you know, it was just like clockwork. The ice cream was in the freezer, and the chips were in the pantry, and I was welcome to them. You know, they were always buying my love with food. And then I remember being 12 or 13 years old, being shocked when that same set of grandparents were trying to have a heart-to-heart with my parents, saying that they felt like maybe I was too big for my, you know, for my age, and like was just was getting too obese at a time. And you know, that as a kid, you know, screws with you. You know, it like really messes you up. And as you get older, you realize that it's nobody's fault, because the information, while it may be out there, is hidden. And it's impossible to navigate through all that stuff, especially if you don't have a passion for it and you don't care, you know. So, and which they didn't, of course, you know. So it was, you know, chips are easy. I believe that in the future they're not going to be able to give these things away for free. And the same thing with ice cream. You know, all this stuff is just, it's so cost effective that it makes sense that you'd want to buy somebody's love with, you know, the cheapest product out there, rather than, you know, spending money on on the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of truth to that. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, your kids are not going to love you anymore because you fed them a bunch of junk food. You know, 20 years from now, when they're depressed and diabetic and have gut issues and mental health issues and autoimmune disease and all that stuff. And I will absolutely argue that garbage food contributes to those things. And so, it's easy. I mean, it's an easy way out. You know, let's say you yelled at your kids and you feel bad about it. And so what do? You bake them some chocolate chip cookies so they still think you love them, or something like that. I mean, we see that over and over again. I mean, and it is an issue, and it's tough to not want to do that. And I think that, you know, there's a question here. Leanne's asked, but what about in-home coaching or something like that, or nursing? You know, I think you could honestly, I mean, with the amount of money we've just spent on this sort of pandemic, I mean, literally trillions of dollars, you could literally afford to have in-home or inpatient facilities to rehab people's diets, and strictly, I mean, and this could be voluntary. You could say, look, we can take you for 2 months and feed you and control everything about your lifestyle, and we could definitely improve your metabolic health, and decrease your risk for disease and all this stuff. And granted, some of those people would have, they would backslide right back when you let them out, but you could probably get a significant many, some of those people, they just can't get there on their own, and they don't have the support. And if you provided the support and got them healthy and got them into a different mindset, and it might take 2 months, it might take 3 months of just intensive support, you could literally change some things. And you'd hate to, obviously you wouldn't mandate something like that, but if you said, hey, look, we have this free voluntary, camp you can go to,
Yeah.
you could literally change the entire population. You could change significant, and it would stick. And a lot of those people, it would stick. It's just some people just, they can't do it on their own. And, having a way and then having support, unfortunately, we've almost come to that in this country. And, with 88% of us metabolically healthy and 72% overweight or obese and 42% obese, and getting worse. I mean, it's almost as if we have to do that, but anyway, that's another topic. But
just even to piggyback on what you were just saying, like my day job is I'm a group benefits specialist. So I work with businesses and try to get them group insurance for their employees, and a lot of time that to me is, honestly, just like treating the symptoms. It's you're constantly trying to make sure that the benefits are in line with this business. And so when they need to go to the doctors, they go to the doctors. They pick up their medications, it's covered. When they go to the dentist, they go to the dentist, it's covered. When they do all these things, it's covered. Every time there's a little illness or an issue with themselves, they have to go ahead and do the symptom curing. But if you could come up with like a health and wellness program, like some sort of health and wellness policy where you can like legitimately help cure the disease, in general, like I think this is something what you're almost alluding to with like the in-house coaching.
Yeah, I mean, some people need a really high level of support. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's people that, I mean, some people just need the right information and enough support, which is what we're doing here. And I think we've been very successful at doing that. I mean, we've got just literally thousands of successes on this in what's a relatively small community, which we are aggressively trying to grow pretty significantly so we can make a bigger impact in the world. But yeah, there are going to be those people that just need you to do it for them. They are just, I can't control myself. I cannot stop myself from eating this stuff. And I mean, they just exist, and that's just the deal. And those are the people that literally need inpatient support, and they may need it for months and months, and then they may need periodic support and refreshers and all that stuff. Is that more cost effective than what we're currently doing? I would say probably it is, quite honestly. I mean, I think if we're thinking about where we're going to spend our healthcare dollars, because we spend a lot. I can't remember the statistics on that, but something like I've seen like 80% of healthcare dollars are spent on like 10% of the population or something like that. I'm not, those numbers might be exact, but it's something like that. There's a small percentage of the population that disproportionately consumes all the healthcare dollars. And if we could just get those people supported the right way, and again, I know I'm a big person on freedom and personal choice and making your own decisions, but right now, there's not a real good option for them. And, like I said, I think some of them would voluntarily say, hey, just take it out of my hands. Yes, I'll go live in your little commune for 3 months and you feed me and exercise me and deal with all my craziness. And that would be worth it, I think. But anyway,
awesome.
So anyway, let's talk about a little bit back more to your sort of situation here, other than the philosophical stuff. So with the, in Canada, I mean, because Canada and the US are very similar in a lot of ways, but there's some definite differences. I know Canada basically came out with their food plan, which is basically heavily leaning vegetarian. Are you getting support from physicians or other healthcare providers in what you've been doing?
As of right now, when I started to lose some extra pounds, and that was obviously like an indicator to my doctor that I should probably come in and get some tests and all this stuff. But then when I spoke to him, he was actually very, very interested in hearing what I had been doing. And, he's of the belief that, the easiest way to lose weight is focus on, 5 pounds a year and, that kind of thing. And I mean, he's a bigger guy, right? So he was trying to, kind of grasp a little bit of the understanding of what this particular lifestyle is about, and how to particularly eat like this. And my dad was diagnosed with 4th stage colon cancer earlier last year. And, I started to help, try to tailor his diet, because he didn't eat very well. And he's had he hasn't had any pushback from doctors after telling them what he's been doing, but he's been adhering to a particular, very similar food pattern as I am right now. And is, I would say, carnivore-ish for him. Me is a far more strict, but for him it's ish. And there's no problems right now. He's had his surgery and he's cleared, and he's completely, he seems to be pretty healthy right now and thriving, in fact. So that's really my only marker, for measurement for success, in terms of like how the medical field would be able to, get on board with me.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly, I mean, like I said, with the last two guests we've had in here, both been physicians, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of physicians now that are on board with this stuff, and it's growing all the time, because I mean, some of them are basically saying, look, we can't deny the results, and it's in large part because what you guys have been willing to do. And from the beginning, I said, hey, let's start sharing these success stories very publicly, and that has made a big impact on not only other people, but also on the medical community as a general at large. Now, there's a lot of people that are aggressively pushing back because it goes against their learning and their training, and they don't want to concede that, I mean, it's, oh, well, first of all, they say, well, it's crazy, it never worked. Then it's like, okay, well, maybe it works, but it's only temporary, or, and so they keep backtracking and moving the goalposts, but surely you're going to die of something in 20 years, and I'm just like, well, yeah, of course, everybody's going to die of something in 20 years or 50 years or 70 years or whatever the number is. So, but like I said, there's some people that are so entrenched and dug in, they're not going to change their mind unless they are personally affected. You could show them all the data and facts and studies and case reports and anecdotes and people right in front of their faces, but they will not change their mind until it becomes personal to them. And then, that's just the way it is. It's, anyway. And I wanted to, Jennifer just said she lost 50 pounds and gotten away from food addiction. And that's a really important thing. And congratulations, Jennifer. I mean, that's one of the things I kind of preach, if you will, as I talk about step one, change that relationship with food. Doesn't matter, weight loss, all that stuff's kind of irrelevant in the beginning. You got to change your relationship with food. Once you can do that, then, you can progress to these goals, but you got to break the addiction cycle, and you've got to break that, thing. And sometimes a carnivore diet being, kind of a cold turkey type of thing is a way to do it. I mean, like I said, I use the analogy of quitting smoking or drinking or drugs. It's hard to be a part-time smoker, part-time drinker, part-time heroin injector and get off this stuff. And so if you could treat this processed, highly addictive foods like a drug, then the only way to get rid of it is to get rid of it and keep it away.
Yeah.
And do that things. And then, once you get there, I mean, it's, like I said, I tell people it's not a lifetime. You can never have something like that again. Some people are better off never eating it again, but there's, there's some level of, recovery where you can have a piece of chocolate every once in a great while and not turn into back to where you were. not everybody can do that. You know, some people, I got to stay strict and I got to do it for a long time, but.
That's true. That's very true.
All right. So, what else was I want to ask you about? You know, one of the things about Canada, you know, it's cold. I know that's pretty obvious, but you know, it's one of those things when you look about, you know, what could I possibly eat if I lived here from the environment? You would not eat what the food people tell you to eat. You know, I mean, it's just not. It would not be possible. And so I think there's a lot of that. I mean, the First Nations. I know I looked at a study from the 1960s, I think, looking at the First Nations, and they saw that cancer rates among First Nations people increased as they got farther and farther away from their native diet, you know, which in their native diet was largely, you know, kind of meat, basically.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We recently did away with the grocery store. That's been our biggest change, I think, over the last several months. Mm-hmm. We started to source out local farms out in the county. And, you know, we literally pick up our eggs off of, you know, a front porch of a lady's house who's got a barn and a coop in the back. We bought a quarter cow from a local farm. And, you know, we're trying to supplement all of these small changes that we can kind of get rid of the grocery store and start, you know, getting our health back in terms of as close to, without having to hunt for it ourselves, just because I haven't been able to actually muster up enough courage to do anything like that. But, you know, the idea of eating local farm fresh foods, you know, was very much appealing to me. No longer grocery stores, can't do it anymore. You know, it's everything's coming from, you know, Mexico and other places, when we have so many farms in our area, and there's just so many, you know, so much fresh fruit here that it didn't make sense to me anymore.
Yeah, I think particularly for meat, milk, and eggs and stuff like that, you can definitely just source it locally for most people. You know, I mean, not everybody has that in a way that's close enough, but I think you can definitely do that. And I think that's a great way to do that. And I think it's something as more people do that, we can support these local farmers and ranchers. I saw a really nice, I reposted to my social media. There was a guy that was, he's a cattle rancher in Texas, and talking about the fact that the processing plants, the local processing plants, are booked up to the gills. I mean, sometimes they're booked out a year or two out, because so many ranchers are now going to these small processors, so they can bypass the USDA facilities, or bypass maybe not the USDA facility, but bypass the mega corporations and sell direct to the consumer, and they can get paid better. And I think it's important that we, you know, I'd rather give $5 to the rancher than $5 to Tyson Foods, quite honestly, if I can do that, you know, if the choice is there. And a lot of times, you know, like I said, if you can get an entire beef for $5 a pound, you know, that includes the ribeyes and the fillets and all that stuff, and then of course all the ground beef and roast that come with that. That's probably a good value. But I mean, the problem is it requires an initial outlay. You know, you got to have a big freezer. You got to be able to pay that $2,000 or whatever it's going to be to pay for that 400 or 500 pounds of beef. And so not everybody can do that, unfortunately. But that ultimately is a good way to go. And you know, sometimes, you know, if you can go in on with other people, maybe you guys can split a quarter, and you know, you can do that periodically throughout the year. That's a way to do that, I think, and to make it economical. And then also, like I said, just as importantly, making sure the ranchers are getting paid for what they do, because I think that's ultimately, if we don't support these guys, they're going to go out of business, and our food is going to be controlled by these global corporations, and they're not interested in feeding you nourishing, healthy, you know, wholesome foods. They're interested in, you know, glop that is highly profitable, and they'll greenwash it. Oh, it's better for the environment. Oh, it's better for your health.
Look, those foods can withstand a nuclear war. So, you know,
that's their selling
point. So healthy.
That's their selling point. Yeah, so you can eat this during the zombie apocalypse.
That's it. It won't go bad.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, unfortunately, I've got to go and run and feed my kiddos. They're screaming at me, and I've got another meeting to do. But Al, tell us where people can go to find out a little bit more about you. I know you're one of our coaches, and where do you go? Where can people go to? Do you have a website or a social media or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Yeti Bones, ALYETI BONES, Al Yeti Bones on Instagram. Can also find me on Facebook like that too. And on Amazon Prime, my Age of Wolves documentary is going to be premiering at the end of the summer. So the band Age of Wolves, yeah, you can find it there too. So that'll be on Prime.
And I just a reference to the Bones, is that drumming that you do, or what is it, the Bones thing?
No, so the Bones was it came back from a band I used to be in called Mr. Bones back in the day, and so yeah, so it just kind of carried over. Lots of people used to call me Mr. Bones, and so it just kind of stuck. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, folks. See you guys back tomorrow, and then again, I'll be out Thursday and Friday. Okay, everybody, take care. Thanks, Al. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.